See if this will make a difference with my video. Nope, doesn't. It actually makes it worse. Oh well. Um, so what I want to talk to you guys about is a little bit of insight into Canelo versus Bevel that's happening tonight. And so I'm just going to break down what Canelo does. And for those of you not familiar with Bevel, I'll explain to you what Bevel does. So Canelo Alvarez is a fighter who fights mostly at mid-range, and he fights in the pocket. Basically, he's a pocket fighter. He may fight on the inside. He's not really a deep pocket fighter, body to body. He's more of a mid-range pocket fighter. Canelo Alvarez is also a counterpuncher. He will counter you once you're within range of him. He uses different methods and techniques, such as virtual distance, where he may be closer to you than you think, or he may be further away from you than you think, and it works for his defense and offense. He also may use the high guard, or may use the two guard, may use the half guard, to come to you. The thing with Canelo Alvarez that limits him a bit is the fact that if he can't dictate range, which is what happened with Caleb Plant, which is what happened with Sergey Kovalev for a good portion of the fight, it becomes a problem for him to close the distance. However, and what I mean by dictate range, I mean establish the range at which he's going to be fighting. Now, Canelo will gradually do that as the fight goes on because he's a counterpuncher. And one of the really great strengths that Canelo has is Canelo can counter the jab. He neutralizes an opponent's jab. I said this many years ago. Canelo, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao are guys who neutralize their opponent's jabs. They take away their jabs from them. Or neutralize it. You may be throwing the jab, but it's not effective. They're countering you all the time. So this is something that Canelo is very strong in. Canelo is more or less a very similar fighter in many respects to Floyd Mayweather. Now the only difference is when Canelo's coming forward, he keeps his defense pretty tight. So one thing about Canelo is he's a defensive fighter. His defense is very tight. And so I don't ever foresee Canelo getting knocked out or knocked down or anything like that because he has really good defense. And he's very deft with slipping punches. He slips and he counters. He slips, he slides in. He's very deft with that. But he has to be within range. This is the critical point that you have to understand. Canelo is limited by range. Just like James Toney, and even Mike McCallum to some degree, even though Mike McCallum could box him. These guys are mid-range fighters. So Canelo, Triple G, they're mid-range fighters really. They have to get it in range. And there are many different ways that Canelo does this to find the appropriate range that he needs. He's not an all-terrain fighter. Canelo is not a fighter who he can stick and move. He did it against Gennady Golovkin, but he's not particularly the greatest at it. However, his defense he keeps very tight. He can do things like what Floyd does, like shoulder roll on the ropes, pick off punches off the ropes. He can fight off the ropes. Okay, Canelo can fight in the center of the ring, off the ropes, and because of his composure and the fact that now he pot shots more and wears down his opponents, he can actually be coming forward, keeping his defense tight. That upper body movement that he uses to get past certain punches, slipping punches, rolling under punches, dipping under punches, and so on. And he could step to you. All right, that's why you saw Canelo do it against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., a much bigger guy. You saw him do it against Triple G. Okay, but the jab still holds him at bay some. Of course, you got to get past the jab. So that's but with one fluid motion, you can do it. Now, Canelo has a pretty decent jab. He doesn't depend on his jab. That's not the only thing. He leads with his hooks. He leads with lead rights to the body. He likes to go to the body quite a lot. That's his thing. Wear down the body and then take out the opponent on top. With Caleb Plant, he hit him with a really sweet body shot. He was working that area the entire fight. He would hyperextend Caleb Plant's jabbing arm, catching it within his hand, and hyperextending it, and then he would throw a right hook to Caleb Plant's spleen to wear down Caleb Plant because he couldn't get him any other way. Caleb Plant was real slippery that fight. But he constantly applies pressure, smart pressure. He's not necessarily throwing punches, maybe catching your punches off the gloves, watching you, reading you. And he's also a guy who's very patient, and he will wait for his opportunity when it presents itself. Again, he's a counter puncher, so he will counter you. He'll counter your jab. He'll counter your right hand. He'll counter different punches. And he feints one way and he'll do another. He uses feints, what we call precise footwork, where you're stepping, cutting off angles, and stepping to a guy, but you're not really in the plane where you're supposed to be. And it's beautiful because that is something that you can use to economize your footwork. All right, you see Shakur Stevenson using it. Again, he probably watched Canelo and saw what Canelo was doing, and he decided to duplicate it. Floyd, when he's walking on guys, does the same thing. But Floyd is a little bit more dynamic with his jab, and I'll explain that to you. Canelo's not as dynamic with his jab, but he does do some interesting things with his jab. Now, Canelo's fight. The fight has to be won by Canelo closing distance against Bivol and fighting him at his preferred range, which is mid-range. Bivol has a longer reach than Canelo. Okay? Bivol is kind of like Floyd Mayweather in the sense that Bivol's jab is not very predictable. Bivol uses his jab for various things. He does use it quite often, but he throws it several different ways. Bivol will change the timing, the speed, the power on his jab. He'll change the direction of his jab. He may throw an up jab. He may throw a spare jab. He may throw a straight, powerful jab. And the other thing with Bivol is he can lead with either hand. So he can lead with the right hand, come back with the left hook, come back with the right hand, come back with a jab, a spare jab. Bivol throws some very unique combinations. People say he shoots straight down the middle. Sometimes he does that. Sometimes he mixes it up with hooks. Sometimes he hooks off his jab, and he check hooks and all those things that a boxer generally does. So Bivol does a lot more than people are giving him credit for. He doesn't attack the body as much, but I think in this fight he will be attacking Canelo's body, and he should. Wherever he can get available shots. He's also a counter puncher, so he's a smart fighter. But Bivol fights a little bit outside the pocket, so he can fight a guy outside the pocket. How he fought Jean Pascal, for example. Bivol is a fighter something like Devin Haney or Shakur Stevenson. I'm not saying he's the same style. I'm just saying he fights at a safe distance. Even Floyd said that, he tried to keep most of his fights on the outside. He tried to be on the outside of his opponent to take less damage. Well, Bivol's the same kind of fighter. Bivol dictates the pace of a fight because he directs the traffic from the outside of the pocket where you can't get him and he can get you. He's really good at doing that. And he has very good pivot work. He can go around the opponent. He can circle out away from the ropes. And he can also push his opponent back because of the way how he utilizes his jab, the kind of combinations he throws, the surprising counterpunching that he has. He has good speed, good footwork. And so Bivol is really, that's his thing, his game. So this is a battle of two ranges. Canelo has to close the distance to get to mid-range. Bivol can fight at mid-range, and Bivol also can fight on the inside, body to body. It's not great on the inside. He does get hit with one or two body shots on the inside, body to body. But he's also very good at diffusing those punches, catching those punches on both sides. Even if he doesn't always block him. So you can work around his guard. But his real thing, Bivol's specialty, is fighting you from range, from the outside the pocket, where he can get you and you can't get him. And he'll go into the pocket and out of the pocket. He has points of entry and points of exit. Kind of reminds me of Vasily Lomachenko and Alexander Usyk in that respect. He's an orthodox fighter. He's a counterpuncher by nature, but he can initiate and he can dictate. So this fight is going to be won by whoever can dictate and establish their range. Bivol counterpunches, like he's very vicious with his counterpunch, but in addition to that, he's really good with his jab. He throws a jab that's not very predictable. He throws it at different speeds. He throws it with different power for different situations. He throws it off of different angles. And he can throw it while he's moving. He can throw it while he's stationary. Bivol can stand right in front of you and you can't hit him because he also has upper body movement to some degree. Even though he depends mostly on his legs, he does snap back, he does snap out of the way and swivel out of the way of punches. Bivol's actually, for a European fighter, yes, his head kind of stays mostly along center line because he uses the two guard to block things. But for the most part, Bivol is a slight variation of what you would see with a European fighter. Okay, he's a little more sloppy with his punches. We say sloppy, but it's really the technique to get power. He's trying to generate more power, so he throws with his shoulders and his whole torso to get as much torque as he can in every single punch, because he's in a division where guys are generally bigger than him. Now, when I think of Bivol versus Pascal, that's the kind of fight that Bivol may have to have against Canelo. He needs to keep Pascal, just like how he kept Pascal on the outside so Pascal couldn't do any tricks or anything. Bivol needs to keep Canelo on the outside for the most part. Now, he's going to have to face Canelo at mid-range. At some point in the fight, he's going to have to face him. If he's ever looked at Floyd Mayweather versus Canelo, he'll get the blueprint of what to do inside the pocket. I'm pretty sure he did his research and his homework on that. He knows Canelo's a left hook artist. He knows Canelo likes to counter on the inside. And if Bivol can counter the counter, which he does a lot, he can counter other guys, of course those guys were slower. But if he can counter the counter of Canelo, he's going to be okay, because Floyd countered Canelo's counter in the pocket at mid-range. So what I'm trying to explain to you guys is Bivol has all the attributes and all the skills to win this fight. And Teddy Atlas kind of agrees with me. He doesn't think that Bivol's going to get any decision in Vegas. I think that whole thing is Canelo Promotions in conjunction with Eddie Hearn Matchroom Promotions. I don't think he's going to get the decision. But I do believe that Dimitri Bivol's going to win this fight. And we're going to know that he won this fight. Everybody's going to be able to see that if Bivol can keep Canelo on the outside. Now, the key to this is Canelo can counter a guy's jab when the guy is not using pivot work and using off of angles. So when Floyd threw his jab against Canelo, he was bopping Canelo in the head because Floyd was throwing off of angles, low to high, and all kinds of things Floyd was doing. He's probing jabs, all kinds of crazy things Floyd was doing. Bivol also probes with his jabs, stiff arms guys. He's not as varied as Floyd and how he uses the jab, but he uses it quite effectively. And a lot of people always feel that the jab, when they say a guy has a good jab, it has to be a good, strong jab. No, a good jab is a jab that the opponent does not expect to be coming. Andrew Warbeth said it, that you want to vary your jab, you want to vary the pace, you want to vary how you throw it, you want to vary the angle at which you throw it, you want to vary the power at which you throw it. That way, your opponent's always guessing, and they don't know what exactly you're going to do. Bivol also uses a system of feints. He has his own system of feints that he uses with his opponents. He can be repetitious with his combinations that he throws. If he's too repetitious with that, he should be cautious as to how he throws his combinations and what he decides to engage Canelo with, because Canelo will start to time him and start to read what he does, and he's going to counter him, okay, because that's what Canelo does. Bivol is not, I don't think he's as good a counterpuncher as Canelo is, clearly, but I guess it has to do with experience and so many other things. Canelo's faced so many great champions. But what Bivol is exceptionally good at doing is controlling range and dictating range and engagement with people. And I know he's going to be super sharp. Obviously, he's super focused on the fight that he has to face. With Canelo, I looked at, the weigh-in and everything. I know this guy means what he says. And Bivol's a guy, if he needs to fight you, he will fight you. I think the nice thing about this fight, which a lot of people are not talking about, I listened to David Benavidez, I listened to his father, Jose Benavidez Sr., and they were trying to infer that Bivol didn't have a jab and his right hand was his most effective punch. Now, let me just say a couple things. One, Bivol will have to make Canelo respect him, as with any kind of fight. When Floyd came out against Pacquiao, he landed that right hand from the get-go, from the jump. So Bivol will have to land a right hand, let Canelo know, welcome to the light heavyweight division. You're not just walking through me, all right? So he's going to have to let Canelo know, you're not walking through me, okay? And he's going to have to get Canelo on the back foot. He's going to have to make Canelo box him. Canelo can box. And he has good head movement, upper body movement, head movement. Bivol is not going to have to, he should not be headhunting Canelo. Canelo, you're not going to get nothing if you try to hit Canelo in the head. You're going to have to hit Canelo in the body. Canelo does protect his body pretty well. But that's what you got to do. You got to try and land shots, set up your shots to make him move his guard down or move his guard up. Bivol as a high guard is pretty high. So you could, and Canelo probably will be looking for opportunities to land body shots on Bivol where he can. I remember Canelo started his fight with Billy Joe Saunders with first shot that was thrown was a body shot. I believe it was a left hook to the body, and then the next shot was a straight right to the body. Watch for Canelo to try and do these things to Bivol as well, but watch a Bivol respect range and not allow Canelo to touch his body, because the one thing about Bivol that's different to say Caleb Plant or different to say Billy Joe Saunders is Bivol doesn't want anybody touching his body. He doesn't want anybody even getting to him. So when he's boxing really safe, because of his footwork and because of his feet, Bivol's he's not even in the vicinity for you to hit him. You know what I'm saying? And that's a beautiful thing about Bivol. So there's a lot going on with this fight. Canelo trying to pressure. He may try to pressure Bivol. He may not try to pressure. He may try to box Bivol. So and maybe walk Bivol into a trap. He might set a trap set and try to walk Bivol into a trap, which is something Canelo does do on occasion as well. But Bivol probably will know some of these trap sets that Canelo will try to set for him. So I think ultimately in the end, you're dealing with a very good fighter who nobody really knows. No, people don't really know Bivol, and I think he's going to make his name. I think he's going to outbox Canelo because that's what Bivol does. Bivol has exceptional footwork. He has a good right hand. He has a good left hook. He doesn't have I wouldn't say he has earth-shattering power, but he has enough power to keep you honest and keep you hesitating or not, thinking twice before coming in on him. So once he lights up Canelo with the first right hand, I think after that, I think Canelo's going to respect him. If Canelo just tries to, just bulldoze through him, I think he's going to eat a couple right hands from Bivol, because that's what Bivol does. He'll line you up and launch that right hand. And he may actually throw a right hand and a bunch of combinations, but he has to be careful. I think he knows this again, the level of fight. He has to be careful how he throws his combinations. Can't throw too many. You will get countered. Canelo's that kind of guy. So he has to also pot shot Canelo some. But like I said before, I think that Dimitri Bivol has everything it takes to beat Canelo. I thought Caleb Plant had everything it takes to beat Canelo, but he just didn't have the experience when he got hurt. I thought Billy Joe Saunders had what it took to beat Canelo. He just didn't have the confidence. But those two guys actually had the ingredients to beat a Canelo, and they showed it in spots. Like Billy Joe Saunders showed it in spots, I think round 5 and round 6. He started to show what Billy Joe Saunders actually could do. And then with Caleb Plant, he was showing it throughout the fight, actually. It was very hard. Scrapbook boxing, what's up, my brother? It was very hard for Canelo to really land anything on Caleb Plant. The only thing he was doing is stiff arm Caleb Plant, and he would land that spleen shot, and that's an arm punch, pretty much. So he wasn't really doing much to Caleb Plant until I think it was round 10. Caleb Plant was engaging him, landing body shots and stuff, and just at the end of round 10, Canelo caught him with a right hook to the body. I believe it was on this side of his body, spleen side of his body. And I think Caleb Plant really smarted from that blow, and he didn't really fully recover from that blow in round 11. Then he got dropped, and he got dropped hard, and he just popped back up from... You don't just pop back up after you get dropped. You stay there, you get your composure, you stand up, you beat the count. Then the referee will tell you to move this way or move that way. You jump up and down while you're moving that way. He takes your gloves, and then you fight. That would have given him enough composure, but instead he popped up like a lollipop, and he just staggered across the ring because obviously his equilibrium would be off. So Caleb Plant didn't have that experience dealing with that situation. Bivol, on the other hand, is not going to do something like that. If he gets dropped, he'd probably take a knee and wait a little bit, regroup himself, get his composure together, and then he would go ahead and proceed to fight. Shout out to Scrapbook Boxing again. He's saying great points. The point I'm making is I think that Dimitri Bivol has everything to beat a Canelo. Canelo gets outboxed. And the reason Canelo gets outboxed are guys like Caleb Plant, or even Sergey Kovalev, who has a monotone, pretty much a one kind of jab. He's good jab. He slides off to the side and he throws it off an angle. and it looks like he's going to throw the right hand. You know, he has the right hand cocked. But even then, Kovalev with his jab he was throwing it too much, too regular. So Canelo was timing his jab, and two, he was throwing the same kind of jab, and more or less to the same place. He was trying to, go to the, but he wasn't throwing no feints. He was just popping the jab. That's not going to happen with Bivol. All right, Bivol uses his jab for different situations, and he may throw it. So like I'm gonna show you. So here I am, right? He may throw it from here. So he may be in the half guard stance here, and he may throw it from here up here like that. Or he may be in the double guard stance like this, and he may throw it from here. Okay? Or he may be he may be, say for example here, and then he may dip and throw it from here. Okay? So Bivol throws the jab from or he may slip the punch. So Bivol might be here, then he slip the punch, and he may spear jab this way. Okay? So Bivol will give you different looks. He mixes it up. Sometimes he's in the half guard, then he goes side on like this, then he comes back here, just like Canelo, right? So Bivol gives you different looks. He's very nuanced. He's a bit mechanical, but don't get it twisted. The mechanics, he's not as fluid as Canelo, but he's got the mechanics down pat. You understand what I'm saying? So he knows how to box, and he knows how to keep that range. He knows how to keep that distance. He can maintain range and establish range. And I expect Bivol to do that pretty early in the fight. And because he's not, if you notice, Bivol's not taken up by the moment, the occasion. He's just on his business. He's just focused on what he needs to do. And that tells me you're going to get a typical Bivol fight. Which means if you get a typical Bivol, as I said before, Canelo's Achilles heel is the fact he doesn't have sustainable foot cardio. What I mean by that is, and this is a drill you should be doing, Canelo should be doing this every day of his life, which is you need to be doing rounds where you're sticking and moving continuously for 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, no breaks. And you need to pick up the pace. You need to do it at a very fast pace. And you mean double jab, triple jab. You have to do that. Canelo doesn't have the foot cardio. That's the problem with him. He cannot keep up with Bivol. That's why he uses precise footwork. He's very economical with his footwork because he doesn't want to burn out. That's how he paces himself. He got serious muscle mass. He's well built. But he doesn't. He should have been doing this all the time. And he needs to know how to do this both on the back foot and the front foot. When I looked at him versus Gennady Golovkin, he couldn't maintain that cardio on the back foot for 12 rounds. He was getting tired. And mind you, he wasn't going at a very, very fast pace. All right, because Gennady Golovkin is not, he's not as intense as Gennady Golovkin is. He's slow-footed as well. I mean, they're explosive. You know, that for short periods of time, they're very quick. But to say you can sustain that quickness all through the fight, no, they can't. And that's something that Canelo lacks. And even when he was facing Floyd, you could see Floyd had superior foot cardio to Canelo. Superior. Floyd got in a position way before Canelo, and he was waiting on Canelo to counter him. And that's something that Bivol has, and that's why I said Bivol will win this fight. It has nothing to do with whether I like Canelo or I hate Canelo. It's been strictly based off of boxing and knowing that Canelo has a deficiency. So Canelo had to show me something to make me believe that he could beat Dimitri Bivol. No matter what anybody says, I don't care what David Benavidez says about hitting him to the body and all that. I don't see that fight playing out. I don't even see a fight where Canelo gets that opportunity to land shots on Dimitri on Bivol's body, because Dimitri is excellent at establishing range. And remember, Dimitri's range is not the same range as Canelo's range. Right? Canelo is a mid-range fighter. Dimitri does also fight at mid-range, but he mostly fights in and out the pocket. He goes in and he comes out. He goes in and he comes out. He's like a Pacquiao. He's like a Lomachenko. He's like a Usyk. Okay? That's what he does. And that's what he's been doing since he's a child. Okay? So you have to understand Styles make fights. And a lot of people, I mean, I don't care what Canelo says. A lot of people think, and that's why it didn't take me a second to say, I think Bivol wins this fight, right? Because it's that's the problem with Canelo. And he has to show me that he can move his feet for 12 rounds, change up speeds on his feet and all of that for 12 rounds. You can't be trying to do precise footwork on this dude. He's going to give you hell. And especially if you have to respect his power. If you have to respect his power, you know some heat if you come in there. If you move the wrong way, he'll light you up. Then now you have to respect his power. Now you have to use your defense. Now you have to use your boxing ability, your savvy. You might even be able to walk him down like you want. And that's like a Shakur Stevenson, Oscar Valdez situation all over again. Because the guy can box. And that's what Bivol does. He's not an inexperienced boxer. He's got a lot of experience in the pros. And he has a lot of experience in the amateurs. Okay? This is not some fly-by-night guy. This is not a power puncher like Sergey Kovalev, who needed to box, fight, and then he was also deficient of energy. This is not the same kind of situation you're watching it here. Canelo is actually taking on a legitimate challenge. And people talk about Bivol's good with his 1-2s. Bivol got more than a 1-2, man. Y'all don't watch boxing. I seen him lead with the right hand, come off with the left hand, come back with the right hook, come back with a spear jab. Okay? He throws combinations. Bivol throws a lot of combinations. Okay? And maybe Canelo can catch him in between his combinations. Because Canelo's a very sharp counterpuncher. Canelo's razor sharp. And he's got confidence. Listen, I ain't get it twisted. Canelo's got confidence and everything. But I just think, I'm trying. I listen to Coach Anthony. I listen to a whole bunch of people say that they think Canelo's going to win this fight. And Bivol's, he doesn't see how Bivol's going to beat Canelo. I don't understand. And maybe these guys, they haven't been watching Bivol. Or maybe they never really had time to see Bivol. Because Coach Anthony said he didn't really watch a lot of Bivol. But when you see what Bivol can do with the jab, I don't think you just rule this dude out. I mean, this dude knows range. And if you want to win a fight, you need to know range. That's what Mayweather was good at. And Bivol is a fighter. I'm not going to say he's on the level of a Mayweather. I'm not going to say that. But I will say this. He understands range. Okay? And he knows what he's up against. He actually described what Canelo does. And Bivol's seen Canelo be beat. He has seen Canelo be beat. He's seen guys come close to beating Canelo. They've been outboxing him. So I'm sure in his mind, as a boxer, he's thinking, I could do this. I could do this. Yeah, man, Scrapbook Boxing. Shout out to you, brother. But I just wanted to put that in. Boxing Gems goes in much more detail on this. Much more detail on this. But I just don't understand how people can't see that Bivol has a distinct advantage. He has a now, mind you, height and reach don't mean nothing. And Bivol said it's going to be about skills. He said it. He said it wasn't about. This is not about weight and size. It's about skills. He wants to test his skills against Canelo. So you understand, Bivol understands this game really inside out with what he's good at doing. So we'll see who prevails, who does what they're good at. Obviously, Canelo, he's going to make adjustments to what Bivol's doing, and we will see if Bivol can make the adjustments down the stretch to what Canelo will adjust to him. Because Canelo's going to, use the 12 rounds, and if he can make it a conclusive knockout, he's going to go for it. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of guys are usually flustered when they face Canelo. Bivol is a dude that I just don't see being flustered by Canelo. I don't see it at any point. I know he's going in there to do his job. He's going to execute his work, and once he does a good job, he's happy. So, this is a significantly, I think, different scenario where Bivol's not taken aback by the enormity of the event. I think when he goes into the stadium, we will really know when the lights are on him. We'll know if he's going to execute what he's supposed to do when the lights come on. Lights, camera, action. If we're going to get the Bivol that, we saw against Jean Pascal, Joe Smith Jr. If we get that Bivol, it's going to be a long night for Canelo. A long night for Canelo. And don't get me wrong, Canelo's going to land some stuff. I'm sure he's going to land some stuff on Bivol. But Bivol never indicated to me that he was a guy who gets wobbled by certain punches or he's in trouble. He never looked like that to me in any of his fights. So I know he's levels above the competition he has ever faced, and we're gonna see if he can execute his game plan against Canelo. Remember again, Bevel knows Canelo has good upper body movement. He knows all these things. He's seen what Canelo does, and I'm sure they're gonna have a good game plan for Canelo come tonight. So I'm looking forward to that fight. Let me hear you guys who you think are going to win in this fight. Leave your comments in the comment section below. I'm going to be out of here. Scrapbook Boxing. Bro, I got to come and check you out again. You got some good stuff. I've been on Facebook. I've been putting out certain world champions that, people don't really talk much about these days. Like, there's a guy, I think it's Marvin Hart. Was it Marvin Hart? He was the maybe the 5th gloved heavyweight champion of the world. I believe Tommy Burns beat him. Is it Marvin Hart? I think that's the name. I think he beat some guy named something Root. Marvin Hart, the one-eyed heavyweight champion of the world. I think it's Marvin Hart. I think that's the guy's name. Or Marvin Hart. Yeah, it's Marvin Hart. Posted him. That's real cool. You should check it out. Marvin Hart was somewhere. Jack Root, that's the guy. Yes. Jack Root was whooping his ass. Jack Root was whooping his ass, and he started using his size and his weight on him. Hey, it is what it is. He used his size and weight. He stopped him in the 12th, but he was a one-eyed fighter. He was blind in one eye. This dude be fighting fights. They said he got the decision over Jack Johnson. I saw like pictures of it. I didn't really get to see the fights. Young Jack Johnson. I don't know. He was throwing like a left hook, a leaping left hook. It looked like a Jack Johnson. But yeah, man. I love talking about that. The first light heavyweight. Yes, Root. Root was the first light heavyweight champion of the world. Yes, I believe so. Yeah, man. 1903. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Way back in time. Like 119 years ago. That's way back in the time. Yes, sir. Scrapbook Boxing, y'all. Those who don't know Scrapbook Boxing, you guys should check that out. It's a great channel. I love to show video of fighters more than tell stories about them or listen to other people's takes of them. I really like to show the video, so I try to get all the old video I can find, just for people to see them in motion, so you can see for yourself. It's hard though. Some of the stuff is hard to get, but there's another guy. What's the guy named? Is it Freddie B. Shore? He was a middleweight champion or something? They're different people, man. And I think he was murdered. And then there was what's this guy's name? He got murdered. Anyways, yes. Shout out to Scrapbook Boxing, man. Peace out. They different people, man. I mean, I've been watching, looking up, reading boxing histories. It's quite entertaining. Some of these colorful characters who actually ended up. Oh, I'm talking about the Michigan. What's his name? Michigan Assassin, I think was his name. Ooh, who is this dude? This dude was great. I mean, he and Jack Johnson was good friends and stuff. I'm trying to remember what his name. It's a guy. It's actually the guy that fought Jack Johnson, actually. They arranged for it. He was a middleweight. I forgot what his name is. Stanley Ketchel, that's the dude. Yeah, he got murdered. They shot him. Yeah, he's an interesting character, man. He lived a wild life. Ketchel was a wild man. Stanley Ketchel, that's the guy, yeah. Yeah, he was something, man. The Michigan, I think they called him the Michigan Assassin. Yeah, Walter Dipley killed him. Yeah. Shot him. Dead. It's crazy shit. Crazy life. Yeah. And Jack Johnson, he died in a car accident, so allegedly they say. Jack lived the life he wanted to live, though. So I give him props on that. Um, but yeah, going through boxing history is quite interesting, man. It's a lot of boxers weren't they weren't obviously they weren't from the straight and narrow. There was quite some interesting characters out there, man. There were some interesting characters out there. They could box their ass off though, but they were interesting. Anyways, what you need out for the moment. Shout out to Scrapbook Boxing. If you guys want to see and know some history of boxing, check out Scrapbook Boxing. He got all kinds of stuff out there. We need to do. I said a long time ago I wanted to do the evolution of boxing in terms of just showing how boxing has changed. Boxing has gotten sanitized so much. They clean up the sport so much from what it used to be. It's more of a sport now. Not really, but it's more of a sport now than what it used to be. It was pretty. Boxing was pretty something, man. It was pretty intense, And the underworld people used to really associate with boxing. And not to say that they don't do it today, but it's so much more. We got the Olympics, and it's actually a sport registered in the Olympics, and all of that stuff. So. Boxing has come a long way from what it really began in the clubs and in the streets. Wherever. So I'd really like to talk more about it, just the whole ambience and what the world was like, and how things change, and how boxing has changed with the world because of that. And at a certain point in time, people frowned on boxing because people was getting killed, and they actually had. People turned away from boxing. There's a lot of things that went on with this sport that I would love to talk about. The socioeconomic factors. Because remember when what was the guy's name? When I think it's either Willard or Dempsey, one of those guys. One of those guys. You remember there was a war. First of all, Dempsey and they was in the Great Depression. So in the Great Depression. I think Willard or Dempsey or Johnson, one of them. 160 videos. My God, he has a lot of videos, man. Woo! You guys need to check this stuff out. Scrapbook Boxing is great. But I'm just saying, we forget that, when there was World War II and when there was the Great Depression, that boxing actually, people still went and watched boxing, but there was a lot of things that kind of got thrown off. Like, for example, I believe in the 1930s to the 1940s, when we had World War II, there were other commissions that actually commissioned fights other than the New York State Athletic Commission and the National Boxing Association. So you had, the National Boxing Association. So you had, the California State Athletic Commission. You had the Heavyweight Championship of the World or whatever, lightweight or whatever, being given there. And then you'd also have like boxers who would be on hiatus, like the champions or whatever, because people had to go to war or whatever. You have champions in hiatus and that kind of thing. So with Joe Louis, you remember he went on tours and stuff, and he went on active duty. And you had Lake versus the middleweight. Was it the welterweight division? I think it was the welterweight division. Things were on pause with Freddie Cochran. Freddie Cochran was champion, but he was just there. So, there's a lot. The British Boxing Board of Control was once actually an actual body. It actually presided over boxing. It actually was something that now it don't have as much teeth as it used to, but it's still there. And then you had the IBU, the International Boxing Union. So actually, who was it? With the heavyweights, I think Rocky Marciano. If I may be wrong, not Rocky Marciano. It could be him too. Oh no, I think it was Joe Louis. Joe Louis had the NYSCC, he had the NBA, and he also had the IBU. I believe he was the guy. I think Joe Louis had it. Yeah, yes. So people say that back in the day there was just one belt, the Ring magazine, but they don't know. I mean, there was several belts over time, or several organizations that actually sanctioned fights, and we had sanctioning bodies. I think the IBU was the first one. and then it became, I think, the BBBFC or one of them, and then we had also at the same time we had NBA and NYSAC, and then we had the Ring, who jumped in the fray to try to track down lineal championships. The Ring magazine belt was like, it was like. So yeah. Anyways, enough for talking about boxing, man. I love to see this fight happen. Looking forward to tonight. Looking forward to seeing who wins the fight. Um, could Canelo track down Bivol and knock him out? People are thinking that he can. I don't know, man. I don't. I mean, maybe he could if he. I mean, if his foot cardio is up to speed, I think he could. He probably could do. Maybe he could do that. But I think Bivol moves a lot, and all through the fight he moves. And even when he's standing in front of you, he's at a safe distance away from you. So I don't know, but his last fight, Bevel's last fight against what's the kid's name? It all changed after the Walker Law in 1990. Right, the Walker Law. I forgot what it is, but the IBC. IBC. There you go. The Walker Law had to do with what again? I forgot. I know I know I looked it up before, but I just can't remember what it was off the top of my head. Walker Law. Walker Law. If I think about it, it'll come to me. But um. Was the Walker Law had to do with sanctioning bodies? It had to do with sanctioning bodies, didn't it? Because, well, I'm trying to remember what it was about. It was about something. Something. Walker Law. Somebody got killed or something in the ring. I can't remember what the Walker Law is. Just can't remember right now. But I know they put down. I can't remember what it was about. Let me see what you say. It was created through the AEF. Okay. But what was the Walker Law about again? I can't remember what it was about. I'm trying to remember. And I don't want to look it up. Anyways, so that's what I got for Canelo versus Bivol. It's going to be a good fight, people. It's going to be a good fight. They're going to give you a good fight. But it's going to be chess, not checkers. So watch out for a chess match. Does this fight go to distance? I think so. I don't think Bivol stops Canelo, and I don't think Canelo stops Bivol. But we'll see. I mean, it depends on Bivol. Ultimately, in the end, I think he'll have to make a mistake or something. The Philadelphia Jack O'Brien scandal. Okay, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. I know the Walker Law. I can't remember what the Walker Law was about, though. Because the Walker Law, I don't know. What, it puts sanctioning bodies into? I don't know what it's for. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I think, The Walker Law actually did it allow boxing to continue, or was it the law that's kind of stopped boxing? You couldn't do it in public or something. I can't remember which one. Because I think the Walker Law was to allow for people to box in public. Was it that? What happened with Philadelphia Jack O'Brien? What was the scandal? I can't remember. I really can't remember. I don't recall it that way. But I think the Walker Law had to do with either banning boxing in public places or something like that, or allowing for boxing to happen in public places, and then the NISAC or whatever. It allowed boxing to be legalized, right? Okay. Because before that, they used to have it in clubs, and okay, right, okay, something like that. I knew it was something like that. Okay. Philadelphia Jack O'Brien scandal. What's that about? Oh man, I'll go to your channel to see all of that. Well, people, I'm out of here. What you need is out. Looking forward to seeing what happens with the fights this weekend. I'm gonna try and run down, see if there's any other interesting fights for the weekend that you guys might be interested in seeing. Till then, I'm out of here. Peace to everybody. Madison Square Garden, baby. I'm out. Peace. All right.